underground bakery, and it was on a corner street, a corner of a street that, a corner building, two streets, one you go in and the other one you go out. But you don't go out straight away, but you went down to the bakery and came up on the other side.
We're just going to have to take a break there and change tapes. Interview with Michael Mandel, Rabbi Michael Mandel. This is tape 8. Rabbi Mandel, you were telling me about going to this bakery, and you were describing, you said that you came in one way and went out the other. What do you mean by that?
The restaurant was in one street, and the same side of the building, you went down the steps, and there was a bakery there. From the bakery, the other side of the bakery, there were steps leading to another street, because it was a corner building which the two streets met.
Do you remember the names of the two streets?
No, but I could go there. It's not very far from Rakotchut, very near, actually very near the Tabagasse Synagogue, Dohány utcai templom, not very far from there. Anyway.
Could you tell me the name of the, was it your cousin who took you there, the one disguised as a German?
His name was Erwin Schwartz.
Could you spell that, please?
E-R-V-I-N, Schwartz, S-C-H-W-A-R-T-Z. He became a lecturer in economics in Oxford or Cambridge, I think, and he passed away. He has only one sister, Judith, and she is much younger than he was. She lives in Israel. Now, Erwin took me there to that restaurant because it was an underground restaurant. So no, but those who were not belonging to the underground had to pay for them. They came in, they had ordered their meals, sat down, ate, went away and finished. Left probably a tip, but it wasn't a fancy restaurant, but it was a decent enough restaurant. And so I was fed there, and he gave me some, the underground acquired quite a bit of false papers. Some they were manufacturing, and some they got from people that were dead. Their ration cards, that was the, most of the time you were given away by lack of ration cards. There's no such thing as not having ration cards, even if you did not have certificates, but ration cards you must have. The ration cards and the, what they call the coupons. They were in a card and they cut off a little bit and that's it. So anyway, he gave me a ration card of a person who comes from Eastern Hungary, from Debrecen. And he told me a story, he fed me a story that I was a refugee from Debrecen, where the Russians by that time have come in that area, and I managed to escape, and here I am, and that's it. So with the ration cards, written on top were the name, and I could get the renewal of it. So I had to go. I was supposed to have to go and ask for it, the next slip of ration cards. But this is the most dramatic part of my. It's unbelievable.
What name Were you given a false name?
Yes.
What was it?
I know by now I can't remember it. I honestly can't remember. Although it was very important for me to remember it at that time, and I knew it for quite a while, but now I don't know. Probably since the accident, it's a bit blurry. But some details are still there. At any rate, I was given some money, I given the ration cards, and he took me out on the other side of the street. He went back, and I had to be on my own, had to be my own devices. He could not tell me where I could go. And it was in the late afternoon by this time. Remember, I had to go just before 2 o'clock, and all this happened, and it was early, it was in November, so these things are very quickly dark. The nightfall comes early. And I went to the Kö route, that means the circular main way, very nice one. But aimlessly I was walking along, across the street, across the road, and saw a figure coming towards me, where I was walking, and I couldn't believe my eyes, but I thought it's worth a risk to ask it, I risk it and find out who it is. So when I got nearer to him, this figure, I said, "Dr. Kuhn?" He said, "Yes. How did you know? Who are you?" I said, "I am Rabbi Heinrich Mandel's son." Hermann Mandel's son. Well, it was my father who rescued him. He had a Jewish father and a Catholic mother. He was wearing not a yellow but a white armband, and he happened to be a doctor, so he had on it a red cross as well.
Could you spell his last name?
K-U-N. Originally, most probably it was Kohn, K-O-H-N, but it was Hungarianized and Majorized, and it was made into Dr. Kuhn. Now, Dr. Kuhn in 1941 or 42, 41 I think, late 41, was sent from Budapest to Sarmaság, which is a marshalling yard, a sort of a central rail point where various directions, the Germans used it for their ammunition to be taken to the Russian front and so on. And it went through Sarmaság, which was not very far from my hometown. Some of my friends and family, one of my sisters, Theresia for instance, was out there to take some food parcels and take some goodies, etc., to these people who were there. He wasn't on his own, they were a group of Jewish munkaszolgálatos, that means labor servicemen who were there, and they also took not only for the Jews but also for the guards to sort of give them smokes and give them chocolates and drinks and all sorts of things, so that they will be kind and nice and allow them to give a parcel to one of them. And she brought back a message, and some others who were with her brought back a message. They met up with Dr. Kuhn, and Kuhn begged them, said, "Please do something for me. Try and get me out of this place. I'm a surgeon. If I'll work with the railway slippers, I'll ruin my hands. I just won't be able to do it." Nobody thought that it's going to be worse. They thought the World War will be over and he will be able to be a mensch again. So they came back, and my father was asked to do something about it, and he did. He went to a Dr. Martonfi, that was an Armenian Catholic gentleman, a doctor, a very good doctor, and one of the most decent men that I've ever known in my life.
Could you spell his surname, please?
Martonfi, M-A-R-T-O-N-F-I, which means son of Martin, Martonfi. But he was an Armenian Catholic gentleman, full of humor and very kind and an expert doctor, very fine man. Before, during and after the war, he was a mensch. Our rabbi of my hometown preferred him to be the doctor, although there were 3 Jewish doctors in the place. Dr. Benedek, Dr. Weinberg, but he preferred, because they were not Shomrei Shabbos, and he preferred to be treated by a Gentile who is a decent person, rather than an irreligious Jew. But anyway, Dr. Martonfi was in charge of the local hospital. He was the registrar. And my father went to him. They knew each other very well, and as a matter of fact, Dr. Martonfi, like several others, called him Herr Kolleg, you know, Kollega úr. And he said, can you not get him out from there? So he requisitioned him from the commander. He said, I want to show that bloody Jew what real work is. So I want him in my hospital. I give him the filthiest job, and he will not hold his nose high in the air, something like that, words to that effect. Anyway, he got him out from there and took him into a hospital. He was an excellent first-class doctor, and treated him very well, gave him medical jobs and not cleaning the toilets. And he was there for several years, 2 to 3 years he was there. Then he disappeared from my view, but I was at home till 43, July I was at home. So I saw him for about a couple of years, and after that he disappeared from the scene. I haven't heard or seen him. And then as I was walking over the street, I asked him, is Dr. Kuhn? Yes, he said. So he, by that time, was working for the International Red Cross as a doctor. He took me to the headquarters, where there was, outside the gate, there was 2 kinds of the International Red Cross Guard, and from the Hungarian Arrow Cross Party. Public buildings were always, and he just took me in. The guards didn't make any fuss, because Dr. Kuhn brings me in. So he examined me, he gave me some vitamin capsules, he wrote a referral note to a Dr. Fisher, who was the director of a children's home, which was under the protection of the International Red Cross and the Spanish legation. It was a Hadik Kastei. It was a chateau that belonged to a person by the name of Hadik, who hated the Nazis with all his heart, and he arranged with the Red Cross that he is giving both chateaux that he had in Budapest to them, and he will become an officer of the Red Cross, and he will be sent on as a courier to Switzerland. And he forgot to come back, and in the meantime the home was to be made into a children's home. And I was, so he gave me a note to this Dr. Fisher, who happened to be a Jew, but he looked like an Aryan. He was blonde, blue-eyed, and he was a high school lecturer, and he ran this home, and I arrived there. But that day, that afternoon and that evening, I was 8 times asked for identification. I walked, because there was at that time already not many public transport, and until I could go by public transport, I did, and then I had to get off and had to walk uphill to the Budakeszi út 69, and there's one person in Sydney by the name of David. I got his name and telephone number here. David Bruck, B-R-U with an umlaut, C-K, Bruck. He lives in Dover Heights, and he was one of the youngsters who was there. I was in charge of that group eventually. You
said you were asked for your identification 8 times. What did you?
3 times they pulled down my pants.
Say that again?
Yeah, 3 times they pulled down my pants.
Why?
To see whether I was circumcised.
Were you?
I was circumcised, of course.
So what happened then?
So, in 1943, Dr. Oscar Schrater, who was an ear, nose, throat specialist, operated on me in the Jewish Children's Hospital in Budapest. He took out my, what do you call it, the 2 sides, but
tonsils?
Tonsils, the tonsils, took out the tonsils. And he taught me whilst I was recovering. He was a great friend of my uncle and aunt. As a matter of fact, his wife was a great friend of my cousin Andrew, or Bondi, who lives now in Tel Aviv. Lang Zhuzhi was her name, and his name was Dr. Oscar Schrater. Anyway, Oscar taught me, said, should you, and that was in 43, should you ever be confronted with this problem of being circumcised, you tell them that you had frequent phimosis. Now remember the word I'm telling you, it can be very important. Phimosis. What is it? Phimosis. Once again, phimosis. So anyway, he made me repeat it several times. I got it right. Frequent phimosis, and it was necessary to have an operation, because what happened, it swelled up and it was very painful, and I had to have an emergency operation, and that's why I am circumcised. And they swallowed it. They ate it and swallowed it. And so I'm here to tell the tale. But then that was not yet over. I got into the home and I was there, and it was fairly all right. Sometimes the Germans came in and I was sent out to open the gate. It was, in spite of the fact that it was written there, extraterritorial, no entry, except by permission and so on. But they did not care, so they came, and I opened the gate and took them to Dr. Fisher. Dr. Fisher greeted them, and everything went fine. He was supposed to be a Gentile, there was no problem. And the kids were kids in his charge, and under the protection of International Red Cross and the Spanish legation. So anyway, we were there. On the 24th of December, Erev Christmas, the eve of Christmas, in the morning, I left the home to go and see my sister Theresia, who was in the meantime already hiding.
How did you know that?
How did I know that? I mean, we were in touch before. We were in touch before. And I went in order. It has a bit of precedence, antecedents rather. She was in the St. James Hospital in 44? Yes, in 44. She was in St. James Hospital. I have managed to put her there through my uncle, thinking and hoping that because she's in a hospital and sick, she might escape worse situations. And so anyway, I went to, and she made an arrangement with the janitor that when the Nazis come in, to be notified. Pardon me, and he won't regret it. So he was going to be given a great reward. He had all her jewelry she gave to him, her watch and her earrings, which was from my late mother. And so it was that when the Nazis came in, while she was there, when they went up one road and there was another road where they could go to the same unit, the man phoned through to the ward and asked for her, and she came to the phone and said they are here, and she came down, just came down in her dressing gown, and gave the money and jewelry, etc., to the man, and they got a taxi, and whilst they were up there, she went to her family, Lerot, because during the time that she was there previously, the Lerot family had a daughter there, a young girl, about 15, 16. And one day when the mother came to visit, she happened to catch her red-handed, my sister. When I say red-handed in inverted commas, she was just covering the girl. It was a cool afternoon, and she kicked off the cover, and my sister went off her bed and covered this girl just out of kindness of her heart. And the mother never forgot that. The mother said, if ever you are in trouble, we are here for you. So that's where she ran. She went to the Lerot family.
Could you spell that, please?
If I know correctly, is L-E-R-O-T-H, Lerot. I don't know what sort of name that is, but there you are. I met Mrs. Lerot, and I met Mr. Lerot, and I met their son, and met their daughter. The daughter was sick, but she died afterwards.
So what did you do when you went to find your sister?
When I went to find her, I went first to Mr. Halmai. I mentioned to you that the person that was put into my uncle's factory, and he lived on the bank of the Danube. A very nice condominium he lived in. He was a well-respected man, very nice, lower nobility of Hungary, and quite a high-class apartment, building or condominium. And I went to ask for some money, for some food, and he gave me also some warm clothing as well. And with it, I went to my sister. But in the meantime, the Russians broke through from the right side of the Danube. By that time, the second and third, if I'm not mistaken, second and third Russian armies met up and formed an iron ring around Budapest, and they wanted to capture and wanted to destroy the Nazis within Budapest. That's when the siege started, really. It went on for almost 8 weeks. Malinowski and Voroshilov were the two generals, two marshals, Marshal Voroshilov.
What did you do?
I went and gave her some of the food, etc., and said goodbye, and started on my way back to the children's home. I'm unaware of the fact that the Russians broke through and overran the home, and so they were saved by that time under Russian occupation. And the war wasn't over, but that was, and I went as far as I could, and I befriended on purpose an old railway worker who was heading home, and I went with him with a tram as long as we could go by tram. Then by that time, in that area of Buda, the right bank of the Danube, there were already cars and buses overturned, and the trams overturned, and there were machine guns all over the place. And I just got off and said goodbye to this old, very friendly railway man, and started to walk towards the children's home, unaware, as I say, that it was already occupied by. Then suddenly I was confronted with I was hearing what was going on, and saw what was going on. It was the eve of Christmas. There was an air raid, and everybody had to go to an air raid shelter. That was the rule. The nearest air raid shelter you have to go to. But before I got there, I climbed up on a tree, because underneath me there were some Germans, because that part of it was not occupied by the Russians yet. Not very far from that was already overrun. And I went into an air raid shelter. Whilst I was in the tree, a ricochet bullet
What happened to that?
A ricochet bullet got into me.
What was the shooting that was going on?
Pardon?
What was the shooting that was going on?
That between the Germans and the Russians. And then I came down eventually when the Germans left. I went into the air raid shelter, and there, to my great surprise, there were a motley crowd of fascists, the Holocaust party members, and the lady of the house where the cellar was, where the air raid shelter was, asked me if I had something to eat. It was Christmas Eve. So I said no, and she took me up, and there was a lull, pardon me, in fighting. She gave me some food, and we came back, and I was listening to the stories that they were telling, and boasting about how many they killed and how many they raped and how many they robbed out and all that. So towards early morning, with an excuse that I've got to go to the toilet, I got out. And there was a lull in fighting at that time. There was between 4 o'clock in the morning and about 8 o'clock in the morning, Christmas morning, there was an unofficial sort of ceasefire or whatever. And I took advantage of that, not knowing about it. I learned afterwards, but anyway, it was lull in fighting. So I had